So in this video, going to look at making 303 style acid bass hook using massive, and then we'll do a similar one in silent. So the 303 sound is obviously very popular in techno, but that kind of acid hook is creeping into a lot of house and tech house at the moment. So really popular sort of sound that can be recreated in massive. So I'm going to load up an instance of massive here. And it's actually quite a simple sound, but it's just bearing in mind some of the kind of traits of the 303 and replicating them in an instance of massive. So just one oscillator. The 303 only had one oscillator, and it only had the option to either have a square or a sawtooth wave. So we can just keep this oscillator as it is regards to the wavetable. I'm just going to pitch it down by 2 octaves. So it's in bass territory when I hit a C3 note. And let's stick with the sawtooth for now. I'm routing this sound into filter 1. And the 303 only had a low pass filter, and I think it was a 24 dB slope, which I think the low pass 4 is as well in massive. So bring the mix slider all the way to the top so we can only hear filter 1. And let's use an envelope here to control this filter. So this first envelope, I've taken the sustain off it. I'm going to click and drag the crosshair, drop it in the first modulation box on the cutoff frequency, apply some envelope modulation amount and resonance, push it up for that acid squelch. Now go over to our voicing section, make the sound monophonic. And now let's distort this sound. Take the drive down for that distorted, squelchy acid thing. Also maybe use an insert and maybe try all of these out when you're making your sound. But I think when I was making this sound, the Sine Shaper sounded quite heavy, driving it. And that's the sound really. So in order to get a nice arped acid sequence, I'm going to use Logic's arpeggiator. I know a lot of DAWs have arpeggiator is included in the MIDI effects now, and Massive of course doesn't have a built-in arpeggiator, although you could start using the step sequencer and pitch modulation. I think it's actually a lot more fun to do it with the arpeggiator in Logic here. So we need some notes for the arpeggiator to start working. So I'm going to start off here and just draw in some sustained, maybe an A1, nice and bassy, and maybe also a C2 and maybe a C3 as well. Straight away it's arpeggiating that sound. We can tweak this arpeggiator, we can tweak the rate. Well, the direction, at the moment it's going upwards, so it will start at C A1 and then it will go upwards in this sequence, these 3 notes. We can go downwards, up and down. I'm not sure which one this does. Again, provides some variety. And then some variation as well. So if we go back to this upwards, if I start moving this, it starts playing variations of that sequence. And then octave range, at the moment it's just playing over 1 octave. Play over 2 octaves. So if we have it set like that, we actually go to options here, shorten the note length if we wanted to, introduce some random into it, random velocities, swing, cycle length, just push the note length up there to 150%, and then we can go back into our instance of massive and start having some fun with it really. Push up that modulation amount, and we made the sound monophonic earlier on. We could introduce some glide now. Introduce some square wave. Trigger the oscillator. And the high resonance values combined with the distortion give you that classic acid sound. What about adding an extra note? It's quite nice. Play around with the envelope. That's pretty cool. We could actually go one step further and start distorting this sound with an external distortion unit like Saturn. Introduce or some delay. And the great thing about this arpeggiator MIDI effect is that if I could go this second sequence of this here, the drums stripped down, I could add an extra note in here and say in this section, let's look at this MIDI riff here. And say add in another C note there. So the hook's going to change slightly here. So, and you can start to play around with that hook. Have loads of fun with it. So that's how you put it together in Massive. Sylenth is a little bit different because Sylenth actually has an inbuilt arpeggiator. So if you load up an instance of Sylenth, and the default instance when you load up Sylenth is a 303 bass. So effectively you could just keep that distorted sound and maybe add that delay back in. If we take some of this, all of that down, all you've got going on here is one oscillator, sawtooth wave. So you could change this to a square if you wanted for that different sort of sound. Two voices, don't even need two voices really. Some resonance on the filter, low pass filter, 24 dB slope. And we could reset this up and just back to its default state. So it's just an ignore. We just go to this drop down. So like with the Logic MIDI effects, we can do up, down, you know, up, down, 2, down, up, random, ordered. So if I just go to up, play one note, it's just gonna play that one note back. So that's C note. If I copy this MIDI over now, loop over this section, playing that same hook upwards. And we can increase the octave amount there, push right up to 2. We've got some filter modulation there as well with an envelope. Ignore that LFO. Again, you can have some glide. And again, this variation on the hook in here. Again, we could copy over that fab filter Saturn that we had on the Massive for some nice distortion. Get some classic techno style bass sounds. So it's hard to do it in both Massive and Sylinth. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.